I think the first thing you need to do is make sure you have your blindness skills in place. You can read, write, research, travel, all those things, and feel confident in that. Initially, I started looking for work before the ADA, and I had a teaching credential, but the only jobs I was offered were jobs in private schools, and in one case I was offered a job where they said they would pay me half of what they paid sighted people. And Aira is another, I think, a game changer. It really can help people feel more confident. It can help people who are looking for jobs, have employers just get over that little fear. When a lot of people, I think, are turned down from jobs because people are afraid of blindness. And it helps them just get over that edge and really look at what the person has to offer as a potential employee. And if you have a teenager, you don't always want to say, what's on that screen now? Are you in the appropriate sites? But, having the ability across the room to have the Aira agent say, looks like Pokemon on the screen, then, you can feel a little more comfortable and give your kids the independence they really crave.
Aira presents A Conversation with Susan Mazrui, Director of Public Policy at AT&T, Disability, Education, and Employment. A Blind Abilities production.
In college, I was able to get readers, and they had a person that was called an enabler, which was a disabled student services. And they kind of walked me through getting into rehab and getting into blindness training skills, living skills like Braille and cooking and that type of thing. Don't you have a sighted person with you to help you out? And he said, no, it's not like I grow a tree in the backyard and can just pick off a sighted person when I need them. I'm Susan Mazrui, and I work at AT&T in public policy. I work on disability and aging issues and work on the introduction of products like real-time text, which is a product we're coming out for people who are deaf and have a hearing loss. I work on supporting groups like Cato, which is our corporate accessibility technology office, and the work they do around making products like DirecTV more accessible. Work with different teams internally on efforts to be more inclusive of people with disabilities. I lost my vision from multiple sclerosis when I was in high school. Initially had problems with walking, then had trouble focusing, and then lost more vision over time. By the time I went into college, I was using tapes only, and eventually learned Braille and all the skills that went with that. I got a background in education. I have a master's degree in education with a focus on computer education. But everything I learned from that time period is now so out of date. It's really sad. It means that I've been on a constant learning curve, which I find exciting, and it is just amazing what's available today in terms of technology. Well, I dropped out of high school because they really didn't have programs in place. The law was there, but nobody knew about it. So I dropped out when I turned 16 and immediately went to college where they did know about the laws. And so in college, I was able to get readers, and they had a person that was called an enabler, which was a disabled student services. And they kind of walked me through getting into rehab and getting into blindness training skills, living skills like Braille and cooking and that type of thing. And it became a combination of rehab and growing up, because I started college at 16. I did my first 2 years in a community college. One of my first teachers was a blind person who later became the president of the California Council of the Blind. That was really the first blind person I'd ever met. She used Braille. At that time, I didn't really know how bad my vision was going to be or how permanent it was, because at that point, they didn't really tell kids things medically. And so I was very fortunate enough to meet a lot of other blind people, got involved in blindness-related advocacy, and enjoyed just, making friends. And I still have the friends today, and it's been a very long time. My college friends and I are still very, very close. And that's very nice to have that support system. Initially, I started looking for work before the ADA. And I had a teaching credential, but was offered, the only jobs I was offered were jobs in private schools. And in one case, I was offered a job where they said they would pay me half of what they paid sighted people. And so I thought, well, I should go back, get another credential, specialize, and see if it would work better, because I did know of special ed teachers who were employed in public schools because there was a need, just as there is now. And I went back and did that. In the meantime, I developed a lot of computer skills and got hired to teach at the college. And so I taught graduate and undergraduate courses while I was finishing my special ed credential. And then I went to work in an elementary school district, taught for a while, got engaged at Pacific Bell, looking at, as a part of an advisory body on technology, got a glimpse of what technology could potentially offer, and was later hired to help shepherd that within the company. Well, Pacific Bell was bought out by SBC, and SBC and AT&T later merged. I worked at Singular Wireless, which was a combination of SBC and Bell South, and had the opportunity to release the first talking cell phones and to provide some leadership with the voiceover and iPhone technology. I was not engaged at all in the development of that, but in terms of the offering as the first nationwide carrier to offer an accessible smartphone. Personally, I used screen readers. I used Braille note takers, occasionally assistance with forms or registrations or things like that. We had an administrative assistant that supported a lot of people, and she would do some of that work, or if I came across something that was particularly inaccessible, she could help with that. I think I really learned a lot when I started on the Pacific Bell Advisory Group for people with disabilities, because I got to see people who had been advocates for a long time across the board, not just in blindness, and how they would play good cop, bad cop, how it was so important to really understand if there was resistance, why there was resistance, and how to work around it. I got to see great leaders, and I think that really helped me understand, how to come across as an advocate in a way that's effective, how that might change based on the different audiences. It helped me understand why people are reluctant sometimes to provide accommodations or to make changes in their processes, and how to work to help them to feel more comfortable. I think the first thing you need to do is make sure you have your blindness skills in place. You can read, write, research, travel, all those things, and feel confident in that. Another thing is to get a network of support, and that would be peers and mentors or sponsors, folks who've been successful and can help you with maybe sometimes the softer skills. I think it's also important to know what your rights are and to be able to advocate for those rights, understanding that sometimes part of your role as an advocate is also as an educator. And sometimes your role as an advocate is to get support from blindness organizations like the NFB, and sometimes take it further legally. But know what your rights are, know that you can communicate your needs, and that you do have the right to have access to an education. You do have the right to have tools that make you productive in the workplace, and to go with the belief that the intention is good, and sometimes the know-how is not there. I do have a parable that I like to keep in mind, and that's it's a Swahili proverb that talks about how you think a mosquito is too small to make a difference. Well, think of the mosquito in the tent of the king, and that little mosquito can make that king move. And so I think that it's really important to understand that while the actions don't always seem like they change the world, they can change a little piece of it, and sometimes that becomes like the the pebble in the water and it expands out. And so sometimes taking a stance and trying to encourage a change, or sometimes even take legal action for a change, can have huge ramifications. But you have to be willing to do it, and you have to know that it's okay, that you're of value, and what you need is probably what other people need as well. I like both Apple products and PCs. I think that they have strengths in different areas. I think the Mac has some great artistic things and creative things. I think the PCs, depending on the screen readers that you have, can also be very powerful. So a lot of it's what you know, how you fit in your workplace or the environment you're in. If you're in a school and they're all Mac, then you better be a good Mac user. And if you're in a company that's all PCs, you better be a good PC user. AT&T has a little bit of both, but we're more PC. I started on the DOS system. Then I had a boss who wanted everybody to be on a Mac. So I went to the Mac, which was quite a transition. And then I went to the Windows on PCs and started working on that. I do a lot, because I travel now, I do a lot with the iOS. I don't like carrying a lot of things, so I do have a PC that's a laptop, but I often will review my email and do things like that with the iPhone. And of course I get to work with Aira. I really like some of the, what I call the small things that it helps with. So for example, I have a preteen. We always have a ton of girls in our house that are not my children, but come in a pack. And it's nice to be able to identify who's maybe not where they should be or doing something they're not doing by name, or to say if somebody is climbing on the roof of the slide, which they should not be doing, to be aware of that. A lot of the parenting things for work, it's going into new environments. I travel a lot for work, so there's some advantages of being able to orient yourself. When you get in at 11 o'clock and there's no one in the hotel, or there's one person behind the desk who's sleeping. You know, if they change the gate at the last minute, I haven't had this since I've had the Aira glasses, but I'm waiting, where they change the gate and there's no one there. And you have to figure out how you get from gate 21 to gate 50. And I think those environmental things would be incredibly helpful. And it's kind of cool because you not only have somebody who's looking for you at things that would be in front of you, but they also can look on maps and see what's behind you. So it's almost like having supervision, where you can see through the walls behind you and all that kind of thing. So it's very cool. I think it's more helpful as a parent or a person who's living on their own, where you can look and say, my kid has not been sick, but they're coming home, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're coming home from school sick. Is this Tylenol still good, or is she's 60 pounds now, so is it 2.5 pills or is it 3 now? I don't know the cutoff. And, while I could potentially go online and find it, this is a little quicker, and when you have a sick kid, you don't want to, say, oh yeah, we'll look it up, I'll get back with you in 5 minutes, I know you're feeling miserable now. I dragon boat. Seattle, it's very popular, and it's cool enough for me because I also have MS, so can't go out in the heat too much. And I belong to a team called Team Survivor Northwest, and it's all women who have had cancer. It's just a great group. It's very supportive, it's a lot of fun, it's great exercise. I do that, I do Nordic walking. So that's walking using these poles, and I go with a group on that once a week. I'm looking forward to trying cross-country skiing again. I haven't done that in a long time, but being a new resident in Seattle, we're only about an hour away from the snow. And I do a lot of things with my daughter, who's 10. I have seen more Disney films and more kids' films than I care to. And so I'm very glad now with the added description. I'm really excited with what we've done with DirecTV and the navigation and the description now. I work with John Herzog. He has just been another great internal advocate. He's brilliant, and he's really pushing the accessibility around television. And so when I'm home, which is not as often as I'd like, or when I use an app, I can, watch some TV and it's described. And I love that. Real-time text is the next generation of TTY. And it's based on the idea that we will have in all our phones as of the end of 2018 a way for people who are deaf or hard of hearing to communicate by text or by voice or combination thereof. So let's say your mother is losing their hearing. You could have a conversation by voice most of the time, but when you're saying you want to meet her at 221 B Street, you may want to write that out so she doesn't think it's C Street or D Street. And it goes all the way to being total text conversations. But what it will do is allow anybody eventually who has a cell phone to communicate with anyone who's deaf or has a hearing loss. And it does it in all the languages that you would see with your computer. So it's built on international standards. And if we're lucky and we get other countries to adopt, it would be the first time people who are deaf can do long-distance calls with text and voice and multiple languages, whether it's Arabic or Greek or simplified Chinese. And I think it's really exciting in the U.S. for people who, a lot of us have parents. My mother came from Japan. And so as your parents age, they may revert back to the original language. And so I think it's very helpful. And for translation purposes, it'll be great. So we're very excited about that. And Aira is another, I think, a game changer. It really can help people feel more confident. It can help people who are looking for jobs, have employers just get over that little fear. When a lot of people, I think, are turned down from jobs because people are afraid of blindness. And it helps them just get over that edge and really look at what the person has to offer as a potential employee. And, for someone like me who travels a lot, it's just a value-added form of information and can help me learn an environment, look up menus in restaurants, a range of things. Because I really get tired of just ordering pizza all the time because it's there. You can call it for pizza and it's not the healthiest. If it's not labeled in Braille like it is here, you can make sure that you're not accidentally rinsing your mouth out with mint-flavored shampoo, because for some reason they introduce mint into shampoo in hotels these days. And so you really can't tell that if you're, especially if you're half asleep from the mouthwash. So little things like that, which, may not always be game-changing, but make life a lot more pleasant. And then just being able to find my husband in a convention, that's always good. We get a little picture with Aira. Say, I'm looking for him. Is he here? I think sometimes people are afraid they're going to use too many minutes. And I think that a lot of times it is the 2-minute call that makes all the difference. Or if you're going to a park, you don't want to always hover over your child. And if you have a teenager, you don't always want to say, what's on that screen now? Are you in the appropriate sites? But, having the ability across the room to have the Aira agent say, looks like Pokemon on the screen, then, you can feel a little more comfortable and give your kids the independence they really crave. Especially in social environments, having the ability to reach out confidently, to be able to identify someone you're trying to meet with, being able to, track someone down for an interview. That can be huge in a job, and those types of things can make a really big difference. Or being able to say, hey, this is my daughter's teacher. Hi, Mr. Kreider, how are you doing? And wave to them just makes them feel more comfortable. And I think for somebody who's lost their vision recently, someone who's getting older and it's really hard and maybe their mobility is not great, so getting up to check something out and feel it is a hardship. Being able to turn on the glasses and say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, looks like it's, I have this much time, or oh, my knitting needles are in the corner, or in some cases with the seniors I work with, my cross-country skis are in the corner, or going to a gym in a hotel. Able to read the controls so you can actually turn it on, and you have no excuse not to use the treadmill. Although I seem to manage to come up with excuses, but you really want to stay in shape. And you're traveling in new environments. You don't always have control over the environment. You can't always Braille everything. You can't always, modify things. But having someone I had a friend who referred to, he was complaining about a company because they said, well, don't you have a sighted person with you to help you out? And he said, no, it's not like I grow a tree in the backyard and can just pick off a sighted person when I need them. And just having that ability to get that assistance. When I was going through chemo, I had drugs that are outrageously expensive, and I dropped a pill. and I was in a hotel room that was not as nice as this hotel. It was not a nice hotel. And I had to climb around on the bathroom floor, which was not a pleasant experience because those particular pills were so expensive. And, it would have been so much easier if I had had the Aira glasses at that point. It would have been much more pleasant. Kids are doing their cane work, and it's great.
You can find Aira on the web at aira.io and on Twitter at AIRAIO. This has been a Blind Abilities production, and you can find more about Blind Abilities on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at Blind Abilities, and download the free app from the App Store. That's 2 words, Blind Abilities. And from all of us, we thank you very much for listening. Until next time, bye-bye.